Plenty of people today have lots of concerns about the economy, the market volatility. Is today a potential recession just around the corner? Are we into some kind of economy, federal layoff, tariff, downturn? Lots of questions out there. And if you're getting a little bit long in the tooth in your career and getting close to retire, many people are asking, is 2025 a bad time to retire? Let me grab Walt and we'll dive in.
It's another episode of Power Your Retirement, and it's a good one today because indeed, is this a bad time to retire? And Steve, the headline, the way we kind of position this is 2025 a bad time to retire? We're pretty much halfway through the year at this point. So I think we could also spill this over maybe into 2026 as well. If you're just planning to retire in the next couple of months, you kind of picked that out on the calendar and you said, this is my day. I'm going to retire at the end of the year or beginning of 2026, perhaps. Are you second guessing that now? And if you are, well, Steve's pulled together some good tips for you on today's episode. By the way, if you're new to the show or to the channel on YouTube, Steve is a certified financial planner, specializes in helping employees of publicly traded utilities reach their retirement goals and with specialized financial planning as well. And Steve, this is a good episode, and I'm looking forward to walking down this road. I'm curious, do you have anybody that's retiring this year or looking at doing it early next year? And what have been their reactions throughout the year so far?
Yeah, I've got a retirement package right here queued up for after the show. Absolutely. People retiring all the time.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you've been able to put together 5 tips for us to help people navigate through this time, because I would imagine if they've got a plan in place, then maybe they don't need these tips because that should all be covered already with working with your advisor, and it shouldn't cause some of the things that we're going to talk about. But if you don't have a plan, then you're going to find yourself probably nodding along with some of the things that we cover here over the next few minutes. So let's dive in, Steve. Our first tip is to don't panic. When you see things happening in the market, when there's tariff concerns and news and things like that that cause the market to get volatile, take a deep breath, right?
Yes. And nobody ever made a dime panicking. Let's just be honest right there. Nobody, or being overly greedy. That's the other side of that. But right now we're worried about panic. And panic is that overreaction when you're seeing down 5% on one of the market indices. Maybe you see, somewhere close to that in your portfolio as well. So it just seeds all kind of panic, and it just feels like, oh, this is the worst time to retire. But what people don't usually even look at is, okay, how much am I really down? If you're close to retiring, you probably have more than just growth tech stocks, I would hope. So you want to know what you own and how much you're actually down, and give yourself some grounding before you actually decide to hit that panic button and just go ballistic and think that the world's ending, at least for you personally.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I have a feeling we'll refer back, whenever you're covering something, you're like, go back to step number 1. We'll refer back to number 1, that don't panic element, as we go through these additional tips as well. Something else that we've identified is a great thing to do if you are feeling some concern about retiring in the next year or two, based on how the first half of 2025 went, is to consider your exposure to risk. Why would that be helpful, Steve? And how does one go about doing that?
Well, when things are going well, nobody cares about risk. In fact, the more risk you have, the better. Oh, the S&P's up 20. I better have done better than that, right, Steve? It's like, oh, well, the market's up 10. We could do 12 or 14, right? Everybody
feels bold in the good times, right?
Right. And they're just emboldened to want that, more, because it just seems like all the stoplights are on green, and why aren't we going faster? But then as soon as you hit tariff land and you get terrified, then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, nobody wants the green, full stop lights, right? Everybody red, stop. And that's how because it's all about how they feel about it. When they think there's no risk, they always want to make more, including me. That's a human thing. That's not a client thing,
Sure.
And when everything's fearful, it's like protect, 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 which is that red light. And when we're putting a portfolio together, it's not quite that simple. The portfolio is designed to go through, we're on a roadmap going from point A to point B. There's lots of stoplights and stop signs and yield signs and all kinds of things on that journey of your portfolio. And we need to make sure that it's built for all those things. But it's a great time to take a moment to check in with your advisor, someone like myself, your financial planner, whoever you have, to make sure that that has been monitored on that portfolio road, if you will, roadmap, to make sure that you're not still in the 10 years ago risk category and that hasn't been adjusted. So it's a great time to do that, especially when you're feeling that fear.
Okay, very good. That's a great breakdown so far. Don't panic and know your exposure to risk. Evaluate it, understand it, consider it. And it's always a little bit easier done with someone helping you, with that unbiased third party to help walk you through these questions and conversations other than just going at it alone. Great time to just quickly remind you, if you want to set up time to meet with Steve, go through a review of your portfolio, see if you're a good fit to work with one another. You can book that session using the link in the description of today's show. Let's get to our third point, Steve, and this one has to do with diversification. So this might be, when you have times of market volatility, another action item or something to do could be to diversify, but we want to be careful about how we do this and why we're doing it, right?
Yes, diversify cuts two ways. So it is, general rule of thumb, diversify is how you actually can live through downturns and not get too greedy in the big upturns. So those things can hurt you as well. So we always want to diversify, but we want to make sure we don't diversify. I'll say it again,
I like that.
diversify, because a lot of people feel comfortable with having, 20 different mutual funds in a portfolio. That's what I call diversifying. So basically, all of your 20 represents almost everything in the market. Everything bad, everything good, and there's tons of overlap in it as well. Because you don't want to diversify. I don't know, however that goes. But you do want to be diversified. So Warren Buffett says it's like 20 stocks. That might be a little bit too low as far as what people are willing to handle with volatility. But we definitely want to be thoughtfully diversified, but not overly so that we kill our return and we really don't even know what we own. So if you're going to be paying for a portfolio, don't get too crazy and diversify.
I think we should always feel free to make up our own words, though, especially when they're as good as diversify. So feel free to remix that in any way that you want to, as long as it drives the point home. I love it. I love it. All right. The fourth one, think long term. And, I used to think long term was 30 years, right? Like, oh, okay. But I've come to learn, I think, over the last couple of years that long term can mean many different things. It's all about perspective. Long term can be 5 years to somebody, maybe even less than that, just depending, again, on your angle, your perspective, and what we're talking about. So talk to us about why thinking long term is an important thing to remember during times of volatility.
Yeah, I'm going to break this up into two types of long term. So okay. If somebody out there is 30 years old and they want to retire at 60, right? Okay. They're early in their career, still at 30. They probably figured out what they're good at, and they're starting to build a resume, and they're getting good in their whatever field they've chosen. And they're looking at the next 30 years of where they can save and build to a retirement. So they think they've got a long runway. Every 30-year-old that I talk to says, yes, I've got a long runway to 60. And every 60-year-old I talk to says that I got a short runway, even though we plan out 30 more years. So we got another 30 years to 90. Plus, with our financial planning software, we always evaluate if you go 10 over that to make sure we're still okay. So really, it's 40 years is a potential 30 years. Most likely, if you're a couple age 65, one of the two of you's got a really high probability of making it to 90. That's a 30-year retirement for your household. And we always want to think long term. Even if you're 60 years old and you're thinking, oh my, all this volatility and uncertainty, just remember, when you were 30, you weren't thinking, oh my. Of course, then you had 60 years, But you thought you were only thinking it in of 30 years, and you're absolutely correct. What the world looks like 30 years back and 30 years forward are very different things. And just always think long term. And your portfolio should be designed for liquidity for all of your short term needs. You should have for lack of a better word, a midterm bucket, that has a little bit softer on the risk. But then you should always have that long-term bucket. If you don't have it that way, you're giving up so much return. And if inflation would rear its head, could take you out. So always think long-term, never get too myopic.
Yeah, it's a great point. People seem to fall into the trap of thinking if I'm 60 and I'm retiring at 65, then I only have 5 years to get it all pulled together and everything has to be executed at the 5-year mark. But you're great at zooming that out and saying, no, not really. Like there are certain things we want in place in 5 years for sure when you pull the trigger, but not everything. There's other things that we're going to plan with that 30-year time horizon or the 40-year. I think if you just take that one breath, go back to step number one and don't panic, this perspective helps out a lot in that regard. And it leads us nicely into our final point, and that is to assess what actually affects you. So the stock market's craziness, if you have the proper plan in place, it might not actually affect you very much, especially if we tie this into number 4 in the short term. Do you have some examples of how that can be the case?
I'm going to divide this into 2 different houses here, traditional and really my client base, just depending on who's watching. So we'll go traditional, which is everyone out there. You have to take a look at what you have. If you have a spouse or yourself in the past or whatever, maybe you did 20 years in the military, work for a government, you've got some kind of traditional pension. Maybe you've got Social Security as well. You've earned some or a full career on the Social Security system. Some of those types of things. Maybe you even have a cash balance pension, which is kind of an in-between thing. But you want to take a look at how much of that is actually going to cover, the guaranteed stuff is actually going to cover your month to month. And if it's 80% or 60% or 70%, that fluctuation, how much does it affect you? Well, you have a lot less risk if you've got a lot of those types of things. So I would encourage you to take a look. So usually somebody has at least something, Social Security or something of that nature. And you want to take a look at that, and then that will be, how much liquidity do you actually need? So that would be the traditional thing. Also, on the flip side of that, on not just fixed income, people that go into retirement with no mortgage, they've upgraded their cars and they're not dragging a 9% car loan into retirement, or worse yet, a $250,000 RV that they put $50,000 down at 11%. You got to take a look at that. If you don't have those things, there's not as much pressure on your income, and you may not really have a reason that you need to draw down in a downturn. You might wait for it to come back later this year or next year, whenever, and then take that $10,000 whatever trip or whatever the additional needs you might have on top of your monthly income. So I would really encourage you to do that. Now I'm going to flip it on the other side. If you're one of my traditional clients, usually you've been employed there pre-2018. So some of the younger ones or newer ones that have come to the utility industry don't have this. They might have a profit sharing or something. But they have a cash balance pension, which pays out in cash, no interest rate risk. And if it's a downturn in the market, those things aren't down. In fact, they're up. So that is something that you want to assess your plan with a financial professional that can, most times, like all those retirement packages that I talked about that I have over here that I'll be working on after the show, most of those people have no concerns about this downturn because in their plan, they have all of those safeguards. In fact, some of them are actually a little excited about it because a downturn creates some opportunity for their retirement.
Yeah, it's a great illustration of what proper planning should do for you. It should take things that scare the rest of the world and let you see them as maybe an opportunity, or at least see that, well, this doesn't affect me. I'm not in this world. I'm not in this sphere anymore to where I'm living and dying with the ups and downs and the whims of the economy or the market every single day. And I think that's just really powerful. So hopefully these 5 steps, questions, things to think about when we're going through volatility like we have in the first half of 2025. Hope this has been helpful for you today. If you'd like to talk a little bit more in depth about your particular financial situation, your finances, your plans, it's really easy to get in touch with Steve. Again, we've got a link in the description of today's show where you can schedule a consultation and review of your portfolio. Definitely go and check that out. You can also find at powerupyour401k.com. Again, linked in the show notes. If you go to that website, you can order your free retirement toolkit as well, packed with great pieces of information to help employees of publicly traded utilities unlock some of the really great opportunities that exist for you out there. So definitely check all those things out. And Steve, thanks for all the help walking us through some of these things to keep us calm, keep us back to number one, right? Don't panic, and keep us calm through market ups and downs. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Walt. Appreciate everyone listening.
We'll see everybody next time right back here on Power Your Retirement. This podcast is provided by Powerhouse Financial Advisors, an independent firm with advisory services offered through Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc., PAS, a federally registered investment advisor. The information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as personalized investment advice. PAS does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of this information for your specific circumstances. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry a degree of risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any case studies, testimonials, or endorsements shared in this podcast are illustrative of individual experiences and may not be representative of the experience of all clients. They do not guarantee future performance or success. You should not infer any level of assurance regarding future financial outcomes. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any investment decisions. Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Be sure to consult with your tax and legal professionals regarding your specific circumstances. For a copy of our Form ADV Part 2A, which provides additional information about PAS, including our advisory fees and services, please visit powerhousefinancialadvisors.com.